Planting the Seeds of Freedom by Catherine Rogers, illustrated by Brian Hall. The crowd is immense. I got here early because I want a good spot where I can see and hear everything. It's May 10th, 1994, a fine day in South Africa, and a day that history will remember. It feels strange, so wonderfully strange, to think about how much this country has changed. But let me tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm so excited to be here, to attend the inauguration of President Nelson Mandela. In the early 1960s, when I was about 12 years old, my family lived on a farm outside Johannesburg. People, many of them strangers to me, came and went on that farm. There were late-night meetings with intense discussions conducted in urgent voices. I was sent to bed early on those nights. You see, back then, South Africa's government had created a system of segregation and discrimination known as apartheid. The word literally means aparthood or separateness. Black people, the majority, had few rights and no representation in the government. Close read. Monitor comprehension. Think about what you already know about Nelson Mandela, South Africa, or segregation. Highlight details in the story that tell you about them. Infer multiple themes. Underline parts of the text that help you predict a theme or central message of the story. South Africa. Black people weren't allowed to live in or own businesses in white areas, which made up 80% of the land, and they weren't allowed to hold certain jobs. White children, black children, and other children had to go to separate schools. Many people thought this system was wrong. People all over the world said it was wrong. But the South African government would not listen. They used brutal tactics, arresting citizens who spoke out against apartheid and sometimes killing protesters to try to maintain control. The government also banned groups that worked to end apartheid. One of those groups was the African National Congress, or ANC. Although the ANC was banned in 1960, it did not go away. It just went underground, which is where my family comes in. As I said, people came and went on our farm. Sometimes visitors stayed for days or weeks. One night, a tall man wearing a chauffeur's cap arrived. My father greeted him and shook hands. "Welcome, my brother. Did you have any trouble on the roads?" "Any sign of—" He glanced at my brother and me and let the question trail off. He and Mum didn't hide their political opinions or activities from us, but they were tight-lipped when we were near. The man shook his head. "The police don't find chauffeurs in white areas suspicious," he said, removing the cap and smiling at it wryly. My father turned to me. "Angie, this is Mr. David Matsamayi. Show him to the outbuilding with the guest rooms." And I did. I noticed that he had several books with him and many papers. I knew right away that he would be taking part in the late-night meetings. But throughout his visit, he maintained the appearance of being a hired man to avoid arousing suspicion among the neighbors. He wore blue overalls and even did some work around the farm. He seemed to relish vigorous work and the outdoors. My father turned to me. "Angie, this is Mr. David Matsamayi." Close read. Infer multiple themes. Underline details that help you infer why the visitor is dressed as a chauffeur when he arrives, and why Angie's father pauses before saying the name David Matsamayi. Suspicious. Raising suspicion. Questionable. I loved life on the farm. We'd been there only a couple of years, and I never tired of riding our little pony Bella or gathering eggs from the chicken coop. Mr. Matsamayi took a kindly interest in my brother Peter and me, so we often worked together on outdoor chores. He seemed to most enjoy working in our large kitchen garden. Together, we planted onions, tomatoes, pumpkins, and even fruit trees. Pumpkins were the most satisfying because the plants began growing within a few days of planting the seeds. "Look at them," he said, gesturing towards the rows of sturdy young stems beginning to unfurl from the earth. "All living beings want a chance. We don't plant some of them here in good earth, in the sunshine, and some down on hard ground. We plant all of them in good earth so they can thrive." Close read. Monitor comprehension. What Mr. Matsumayi says might be true in contexts other than gardening. Highlight dialogue that seems to have two meanings, and discuss with a partner what it means. Infer multiple themes. Underline dialogue that reveals story themes. A good gardener thinks beyond this season and the next, he went on. These apple trees won't produce fruit for years, but still, we carefully tend them, making sure they have sun and water and fertilizer. If we work hard, faithfully, in time we can harvest the fruit. Others who come after us may not know to thank us, but they will enjoy the fruit's sweetness. One day, Mr. Matsumayi's wife came to visit. Almost before it had fully stopped, she jumped out of the car, which was driven by a man I had seen arrive for some of the political meetings. She and Mr. Matsumayi hugged for a long time, and then wiped away happy tears. "Magato, come tell your father hello," the woman called, and a boy who was about 11 years old shyly stepped out of the car. Mr. Matsumayi swooped him up, exclaiming over and over again about how the boy had grown. My brother and I watched from the porch, keen to meet a potential playmate, but they all went inside to have tea and catch up. Eventually, though, Makato was sent away to play with us, or wandered outside of boredom, the grown-ups wishing, as grown-ups always do, to have grown-up talk. Black and white children did not often play together in South Africa, and Makato was reserved with us at first, saying little. But he accepted a ride on Bella, and then went with us to play with our barn cat's new kittens. Soon enough, he grew more comfortable with us, although he never became talkative. Close read. Vocabulary and context. Context clues, or words and phrases near an unfamiliar word, can help readers understand the word. Highlight context clues that help you understand the word reserved in paragraph 20. The new visitor stayed a few days. I had never seen Mr. Matsumayi so happy. Among other things, they had brought him some newspapers and magazines. We had a radio, but no TV, and home computers and cell phones didn't exist yet, so newspapers and magazines were our window to the world. One afternoon, Peter was flipping through a magazine, looking for comics or word puzzles. Magato had carried the magazine away from the outbuilding where his family was staying and had set it down to get a drink of water. Peter stopped turning pages and then stared hard at the magazine for a long moment. "It's Mr. Matsumayi," he called out. "Magato! Hey, this man looks just like your dad!" Magato, looking startled, came back into the room, grabbed the magazine, and closed it. It's not. I mean, he doesn't." "Well, let me show you the picture," said Peter, grabbing the magazine back. "How do you even know who I mean if it's not him?" I jumped up and came to look too. Peter soon had the magazine open to a photograph of a tall black man in a suit, speaking to a small crowd. The man definitely resembled Mr. Matsumayi. "Look here, Peter. It says his name is Nelson Mandela," I said, pointing at the caption. "Not David Matsumayi. It must not be him." Nowadays, everyone knows who Nelson Mandela is, but back in 1961, we children did not yet know his name. Magato opened his mouth as if to contradict me, then closed it and pulled the magazine away again. Then, without a word, he stalked away to the outbuilding and did not come back till it was time for dinner. Close read. Monitor comprehension. Highlight details about Magato's reaction to Peter's question. Discuss with the partner what Magato might be thinking in this scene. Resembled. Looked like. Stalked. Walked fast, as if upset or angry. Magato and his mother were leaving in the morning, so my parents had made an especially nice meal of braai, which is a traditional South African barbecue, with maize pap and stewed pumpkin. Magato didn't seem mad, but he said even less than usual. The grown-ups were chatty and talkative, discussing the news and travel plans for the next day. As we were finishing up dessert, Peter suddenly piped up. "Mr. Matsumayi, I saw a picture of you in a magazine. It looked just like you anyway, but the name was different. It was... Anjie, do you remember the name?" Normally, I was better than Peter at knowing when to keep my mouth shut, but I couldn't help myself. "Nelson Mandela," I blurted. Close read. Monitor comprehension. Highlight words and details that suggest the true identity of Magato's father. The room grew very quiet. Everyone was looking at someone else's eyes, except for Magato, who stared at the crumbs of his milk tart. I looked at Mr. Matsumae, and then, because he was looking at my parents, I looked at them. Peter, Auntie, my mum began slowly. I could see her trying to decide what the answer should be. We weren't in trouble, I could tell. Magato wasn't in trouble for letting us see the photo, but the adult's obvious unease was unsettling. Then Mr. Matsumae stood up and smiled at Peter and me. Come with me, children, he said, smiling but serious. I will tell you who I am. Peter and I rose too, and we three walked outside. I thought we would sit on the porch, but he walked on, and we followed. My name is Nelson Mandela, not David Matsumae, but my name is a great secret, and you must not say it aloud to anyone, ever. I think you know that the ANC is banned? We agreed. That's why Mom and Dad tell us not to say anything at school or to neighbors about the ANC or any of our visitors, I said. Come with me, children, he said, smiling but serious. I will tell you who I am. Close read. Monitor comprehension. With a partner, ask and answer questions about who the people are that come and go from the farmhouse. Highlight details that explain why the children are not supposed to talk to others about the ANC. I have also been banned because of my work for the ANC. I'm not supposed to meet with others or talk about ending apartheid. Do you know what it means to be in jail? Yes, Peter said. You're in a room with bars on the door and window, and you can't leave. I have been in jail before, and if you say my name, if you say that I have been here, I might have to go back to jail. Maybe for the rest of my life. I could even be hanged. We had all stopped walking. I looked at the ground, taking the seriousness of what he was relaying to us. But the ANC is right, isn't it? Asked Peter. Why is it banned? The people in power want to keep all the power for themselves. They do not want to share. The ANC is fighting for the right of all people in South Africa to have a share. We stopped at the edge of the garden. The ANC wants all the people of South Africa to be like those seeds we planted, to have enough good land, to have what they need to thrive. We are planting the seeds of freedom. Close read. Infer multiple themes. Underline dialogue that helps reveal one or more story themes. Relaying. Passing along. Telling. While we wait for those seeds to grow, you must not say my name to friends or neighbors, to police, to anyone. If you say anything about me, even to each other, call me Mr. Matsumae. He squatted down and looked into our eyes solemnly. Do you promise? We promised. He stayed another week before he put on his chauffeur's cap and packed his things into his car. He asked Peter and me to take care of the fruit and the vegetables in the garden, and particularly to water the little fruit trees. We waved goodbye from the porch. I never said his real name out loud to anyone, not even Peter. Close read. Monitor comprehension. Highlight a detail that shows that Nelson Mandela does not want to be noticed by police. Solemnly. In a serious way. In late 1962, we learned that Mr. Mandela had been arrested. He had been underground so much, using the chauffeur's disguise and staying in safe houses like ours, and even traveling out of the country without permission, that the newspapers ran big stories about his capture. When he went to trial, he gave a speech that is still remembered all over the world now. At the end, he said, I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. They did not hang him, but he was sentenced to life imprisonment. He was in jail from 1962 to 1990, almost 30 years of his life. My parents were soon also arrested, and Peter and I went to live with an aunt until they were released. We then moved to London, so we were not living on the farm when the apple trees first bore fruit. But I visited the farm when I returned from exile. I told the owners that Nelson Mandela himself had planted the trees in hope that others would enjoy the sweetness of the fruit. Close read. Infer multiple themes. Discuss with a partner why Aunt Jie mentions the apple trees again. Underline details that reveal how planting the trees was like Mandela's work to end apartheid. Over the years, the ANC continued its work, and the world cried out for Mandela's release. The people sang songs about him. They protested against the government, and some fought in the streets. One day, the government grew weary of trying to control everyone, tired of the fighting and the world's condemnation. A new president, F.W. de Klerk, agreed to free Mandela and lift the ban on the ANC. After he was released, Mandela became president of the ANC, which organized massive strikes and participated in peace conferences. Eventually, the government agreed to create a new democratic constitution and, in 1994, to hold elections in which all the races could vote. Do you know who the people elected president? Well, today I'm here to see him. Not David Motsamai, but Nelson Mandela, inaugurated as the new president of South Africa. Today, I will say his name out loud. From today forward, we will enjoy the fruit of his hard work. Close read. Vocabulary and context. Highlight context clues that help you understand the meaning of the word cherished in paragraph 50.